Hiya! Welcome to episode 31 of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host Terry J. Aman, and in this installment, titled Tearing into Claws, I track a few stray shows and episodes that somehow escaped my attention last time, including Claws, try to get up to speed on Preacher and Pose, and I lift up the otherwise brilliant Trial and Error to discuss my disappointment with what are hitting my ears anyway as misdelivered lines. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy here.
I've got to say, the process involved in putting episode 30 together was one wild ride. Laughably enough, I was even considering writing it up over the 4th and releasing it while on the road. Once we'd replaced my laptop with a Chromebook, however, I soon realized that this was not going to be possible. The functionality available on a Chromebook is quite limited relative to the HP I'd been using. I can't process photos, video, or audio on the road and post episodes from wherever like I could before, though as I've gotten used to it, I find it's providing some excellent value for the price. I can access the internet and write up this podcast from anywhere. It's a beautiful Saturday. I'm putting some thoughts together at the City Brew in Bismarck while enjoying a Moroccan white mocha, and gotta say, this weekend is off to a fantastic start. After a couple of weekends on the road I mentioned in episode 30, with the weekend before last trying desperately to fling some thoughts together while at the same time trying so hard to plow through a media backlog and get a podcast recorded, I realized as of last Sunday evening, that is 2 or rather 3 Sundays ago as you may be hearing this, I needed to just chill. I'd gotten some thoughts put together, but I was also trying to get some drop-ins recorded, and I'd not gotten anywhere near everything I'd hoped to include, bringing me to last weekend, where I finished putting my thoughts together and got them recorded by Sunday night. My editing ran last Monday through Wednesday nights deep into the night, with my final cleaned-up version posted late Thursday night. I was so happy with it, not least of which for its sheer breadth of coverage compared to other entries. For an hour and 15 minutes, I felt like it clipped along pretty well, and I loved my conversation with my friend Nathan in Peoria. But for as long as it was and as much as it covered, I find it missed a couple of important points, and I've wanted to pull together a quick supplemental installment.
Friday Night Feature!
First and foremost, I needed to talk about what's going on in Florida with the Russians and the drugs and the nail salon and the delectable Niecy Nash as Desna in Claws. Last week, Desna spent the entire episode reacting to the discovery of her betrayal by her fiancé, Jimmy John Louis as the tall, dark, and handsome Dr. Gregory Raval, and Franca Potente as her boss, the tough but inspiring and otherwise supportive mentor, Zlata. The episode was a quick side quest exploring her and her brother, Harold Perrineau as Dean's history with their favorite foster mom, Aloma Wright as Mrs. Wallace, whom Desna remembered as being inspirational to her growing up. In an intriguing aside toward the end of the episode, Desna jumps in for some double dutch with 2 younger versions of herself whom we met in her flashback memories. With the exception of the quiet and centric episode Scream a couple of weeks back, this was probably the most introspective episode we've encountered in this show, and one of only a couple of windows we've really had on Desna's growing up years and influences. And when we met her former foster parents, Keith and Sandy Coombs, in Season 1, they were mainly meant to be characters for us to hate instantly, that is, real estate shills who sexually abused children, rather than as providers of insight. Desna came out of the Double Dutch episode much stronger and with more self-confidence than she'd had going in, freshly stung by the realization the boss she admired and the man she loved had been playing her, with each other. That's why I was surprised by how instantly flaky she proved to be in this past weekend's episode. I mean, no one could blame her for lashing out. She'd learned in quick succession that she was affianced to a cocaine-peddling huckster who was pursuing marriage as a means to accessing her clean record and laying claim to it upon murdering her. Anyone would be spun, but instead of sticking to their plan, once they'd got to Ruval's warehouse, she shifted gears and stole the cocaine, at first to cripple Ruval's operation, which then transformed into a plan to spark a war between him and the Russians. Ruval's a powerful dude from a culture defined by machismo. He's used to underestimating women, but I'm intrigued by Zlata's flat-footed regard for Desna, who she's gotten to know as their operations became more intertwined and the pill mill operation expanded. Indeed, one suspects a woman would have an instinct about another woman, newly affianced, who she's bonded with. On the heels of a proposal and a giddy engagement, Desna's suddenly withdrawn, vague claims of illness suddenly withholding sex in a relationship that up till now has been mostly sex, and poof, no sign of her anywhere. Heck, never mind an even remotely intuitive woman, anyone who knew her would think that that was an odd sequence of reactions. I'll tell you one thing that would have happened instantly. Solon would have new manicurists who mostly spoke Russian, so as to spy on them all for Zlata. But since that did not happen, she's going to be a little surprised to discover her henchman has been assassinated by Ruval, Flipstar Roller having planted cocaine in his apartment. At least as surprised as Desna was to get arrested by Quiet Anne's former girlfriend, and about as surprised as probably Quiet Anne will be to discover that she's been played for an informant. That won't resolve well, but in the meantime I take comfort that Dean will get help from Jen and Polly, and that the cops aren't after Desna any more than they were after Dr. Feelgood. Just want to flip her to get dirt on Zlata, which I am so very certain that she has, not least of which for her witness to the attempted murder of Jen's husband, Bryce. Loving this season, can't wait to see more.
Current collection.
In other viewing, I finally got a chance to see the season finale of Pose, and it closed things out beautifully. MJ Rodriguez as Blanca extended a helping hand to down on her luck, sleeping on a park bench Dominique Jackson as Elektra, contending with her nasty, ungrateful attitude. If it's not too much trouble, it will be. Would you have your boys paint my room? This resembles a dirty diaper. My preferred color is winter lilac. While a guest of Shea Evangelista, Elektra also made so bold as to comment on everyone's informal dinner attire and the fact that the table settings didn't match. Nevertheless, she burst into voluble joy and congratulations at the boys' news that Damon and Ricky had nailed their auditions as backup dancers for I'll Be Sure. Blanca was concerned, since Damon had secured a scholarship for his second year at the New School of Dance, and she didn't want him to miss out on his opportunities. In the end, he and Ricky decided that Ricky should tour with I'll Be Sure, and that Damon should continue with dance classes. This somewhat minor kerfuffle resolved, Blanca gave the mopey Elektra the boot to the booty that she needed to boost her self-confidence and apply for work as a hostess at an upscale restaurant, in exchange for which Elektra helped Blanca fight off competition from the House of Ferocity at the Princess Ball. Wearing shoulder pads that looked like nothing so much as a gigantic gold lame bow, and inspired by Blanca's kindness towards her, Elektra first helped her perfect her makeup, and then proceeded to read her former children Candy and Lulu, recently of the House of Abundance, for their cruelty and arrogance, and reconciling with the dissatisfied Poppy, and drawing him and the other boys over to the House of Evangelista. Blanca reached out to India Moore as the newly emancipated Angel, who'd managed to work through her feelings for Evan Peters' Stan Bowes, Blanca finally telling Angel about her HIV status and naming her heir apparent. Blanca continued to work miracles by forging a love connection between a handsome bartender and Billy Porter as the desolate prey to hell. Buoyed by practically doubling its household in one 5-minute speech by Elektra, the House of Evangelista slayed the House of Ferocity. I say that, but both houses were fiercely on point, and Ferocity only lost by 1 point, despite having been suddenly reduced to a wretched troop of slags, and in a room full of egomaniacal drag queens, Blanca, dismissed earlier that very evening as a skinny little boy in his mother's dress, unanimously earned the title of Mother of the Year. While this resolution was complete wish fulfillment on the part of Ryan Murphy and his production team, up to and including the celebratory dinner party, a staple from his Nip Tuck finales, it was a sweet conclusion to a sweet show. The stakes were low, but they were all about people reaching out and empowering each other, calling each other out where they needed to, but generally helping each other where they can to be their best selves. Also, on a side note, there was a line in the finale where Elektra turns to Blanca and says, "You have always been my heart." Which, just as a personal curiosity, was one of the things I had her say when I conjured her to read me in a correction in episode 29 of this very podcast. I do not think these two things have any causal relationship, since I've basically got a listenership of, well, you. I just thought it was interesting. Oh, and I got a chance to listen to the Towne Where Murder Happens podcast put together alongside the second season of Trial and Error Lady Killer, and I love it. It's a completely in-character podcast featuring Amanda Payton as podcaster Nina Rudolph, poking fun at serial crime podcasts and the world of East Peck, South Carolina, including voice talents from the show and expanding upon its surreal nature. Also, we need to figure out how many camera crews are documenting the progress of this crime, given that in the 4th episode, which aired this past Thursday, Stephen Boyer as Dwayne Reed. Oh my god, I am not bleeping his name. People in North Peck have never even heard of podcasts. Anyway, Stephen Boyer, as Ralph Wiggum but a grown-up, fell through a secret passageway connecting Lavinia Peck Foster's pool to the dump site for her late husband's corpse, and we were somehow able to see both ends of that. Sadly, I've got to comment on a few misdelivered lines just within the first few minutes of this production. Nicholas D'Agosto as Josh Siegel, defense counsel for Kristen Chenoweth as Lavinia Peck Foster, confronts his client as he's releasing her from the East Peck Police Department on the charge of stealing a sandwich while hilariously disguised in drag. He asks her, "Why did you steal a sandwich?"
"Well, I was out and I got hungry. Edgar paid for everything. I don't even carry a wallet."
"You carry a disguise."
"Everywhere I go, people want something from me."
It's the writer in me, and actors need to interpret the script through the characters they create, and D'Agosto has inhabited this role perfectly. But I'll notice it occasionally, enough to notice it as a problem, when an actor will deliver a line in a way that simply does not convey the intended message. In this case, the context for the disguise line wasn't to tell Lavinia about the existence of the disguise, it was to express disbelief in it. The line as written should have been delivered, "But you carry a disguise?" Also, just a few minutes later, this one is more shaping than misdelivered. Josh is addressing the camera to talk strategy and says, "In order to secure a conviction, the prosecution needs 3 things. Opportunity. Our timeline shows Lavinia would only have had 15 minutes to kill Edgar and dispose of the body, which is impossible. Motive. She loved the guy and she had more money than him." He goes on to discuss the weapon, but I needed to stop at the deadpan delivery for the second item, which mostly stood out to me because I was still taken out of the production from the first misstep. Motive. She loved the guy and she had more money than him. Would have driven his point home a little harder, which, as an attorney, would be a priority for this character. So I think in a primetime network production, myself, I'd have had him take another run at it. Most of the time when I encounter these things, the actor is doing their best from whatever context got laid in at a table read and the energy of the scene on the set, not to mention delivering the same lines over and over again so as to capture footage from different angles. So mainly what I take exception with is the director, who I feel is responsible for making the whole thing work together as a show. The first one of these things I ever noticed was when I was about 9 or so, the Dreams episode from the 8th season of MASH, which was otherwise a brilliant piece of introspection. Hamlet reference at the close and everything. It actually freaked me out a little at the end with the image of Ellen Alda as Hawkeye floating armless down a river of severed limbs. But there was this PA announcement at the top of the episode. Honestly, the easiest thing in the world to clean up in post. "Waltz a little faster, folks. New shipment of Wounded in 15 minutes. We haven't had Wounded for at least half an hour. What is this? Anyway?" Which, wow, that was quad erat demonstratum of a misdelivered line, but it helped sensitize me to the phenomenon. A lot of times a line is only misdelivered in context with some other scene being shot elsewhere that, say, drops parallel construction. One actor is saying something in one scene that a writer intended to be cut into sequence with another and it's a little off and they biffed it. But in situations where the context is the scene they're shooting, when it already became words on a page and the actor is just rattling off to get to the next thing, that's really on the director. It hurts storytelling and it hurts the show, and I wish people paid closer attention in the moment because not everything can be cleaned up so easily. Like when later, in the courtroom, Josh expresses surprise when Lavinia pulls a plate out of her purse to hurl at him. "You have a plate, but no wallet." By this point, I've just called into question his reaction to everything in her possession. You're not informing her. You're expressing disbelief. The fact that D'Agosto can't see in the line he's given, particularly given the frustration in the rest of his delivery, "You've got a plate, but no wallet?" That's the callback intended on that line, and once again, boofed it. That one's on him and the director. Fun show either way, but still. Moving along, it seems I need to pay more attention when bringing in supernatural episodes. I mentioned I have all of Season 13 piled up on my DVR, and I thought this would be a good weekend to get a few more in the archive. I picked up where I was in the season with the 5th episode, Advanced Thanatology, which brought me up to date on what's been going on with Death since Dean slew him a while back and Castiel slew a Reaper, Billy, who'd been gunning for the Winchesters. Apparently in the bureaucracy of the afterlife, that's how you get promoted. Then I hit the wrong button, and before I knew what was happening, I followed that up with the 20th episode, Unfinished Business, a Tarantinian homage to Kill Bill, with the Archangel Gabriel, the Chandler Bing of the Holy Host, stabbing his way through a pantheon of Norse demigods. Charming, but disorienting, since this is a series that tracks along season-length story arcs, and quite a lot happened between episodes 5 and 20. And as of this writing, I'm still looking forward to seeing the reunion between Castiel and Jack. Should be a good time. I was overjoyed to discover I'd finally recorded the second season premiere of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, then despaired of making any sense of it. Far as I can tell, someone has instituted a paramilitary operation for the purpose of collecting and studying persons who seem to have superhuman abilities. Then they promptly died and left it in the hands of meathead functionaries who know how to run the experiments, but not much more, and don't seem to have an especially clear idea what their objectives are. Dirk isn't psychic, for instance, but they nevertheless run him repeatedly through a battery of tests designed to detect psychic abilities, all with negative reinforcement, slime to the face, and electric shocks when he misses an answer. What actually happens with Dirk is that he lives his life and just happens upon extraordinary coincidences that eventually lead him to solutions as to what's going on. Of course, he'll have to run about for some of that purpose this season since his former assistant, Todd, is on the lam with former bodyguard Farah in backwards America, southeast, since I have to guess, and Dirk's one-time nemesis, Bart, a holistic assassin, has met up with Susie, a middle-aged loser who turns her pathetic life around with the discovery of a D&D wand and a spellbook. Bart spares her life and they part ways, Susie returning home and going a little nuts with the wand, one by one zapping away the disappointments in her life, including her husband's overbearing attitude and his disagreeable mutt. Dirk seems trapped in this endless cycle of impossible tasks until a plot device named Mona releases him from the paramilitary compound right, who to thunk it, into the trunk of a car that disappeared decades ago but has apparently been lodged in a tree all this time. Well, it plummets to Earth right at the moment Todd and Farah have been chasing a rabbit from an abandoned house into a clearing. They discover in quick succession the car and then Dirk, and all of this is somehow bound up in a role-playing sword and sorcery, scissors and sorcery fantasy world that itself seems to have some knowledge of Dirk. That's as far as I've gotten as of the second episode, and wow, am I confused, but I am definitely along for this ride. On Preacher, I should have guessed that Tulip's return from the dead would be tied to Madame Marie Langelle, Jesse's voodoo Creole swamp granny, staying alive. When Tulip tried to kill her and break free from Angelville, she keeled over.
What are you, new?
Leaving Dominic Cooper in the title role to try bringing her back to life. Oh, right. The Angelville boys make a Pulp Fiction reference when injecting her heart with adrenaline. She ain't no Uma Thurman, who was referenced in her Kill Bill persona in Oh Hey, the episode of Supernatural I watched by mistake. Nice. This season has shown us the Grail cultists, under pressure from the outlandish Holy Father, are desperately trying to prepare a wildly inbred idiot bastard descendant of Christ for a second coming, and they get the brilliant idea to track down Jesse's friend and vampire Cassidy to get in touch with Jesse, whom they've identified as Plan B. At that very moment, however, a gaggle of vampire-obsessed idiots called L'Enfant Susang, or the Children of Blood, attack them and kidnap Cassidy for their own purposes. Looking forward to finding out what those are. What else? Plum finds herself in the belly of the Jennifer Beast in Dietland, her fate in the balance when she fails to assassinate a man identified as a child molester as a loyalty test. Monty Python comic genius John Cleese made an appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert recently and was amazing. He joined Stephen for his free hat bit, making pronouncements and decrees while so behatted before conversing with him at the desk. Always such a charming interview. And I forgot to mention it in episode 30, but I caught Forbidden Histories, The Real Mary Magdalene, an hour-long speculation featuring interviews and church tours in the south of France, where apocryphal traditions suggest Mary Magdalene, perhaps Christ's consort, perhaps his wife, perhaps pregnant with his child, may have traveled and established a 30-year ministry. Lots of perhapses there, but I remember reading what I could find of the Gospel of Mary once upon a time and was interested in seeing how the scholarship had progressed. Beyond a bit of gossip, not all that far.
Upcoming shows.
Oh, and very quickly, I saw where Cartoon Network was airing the new season of We Bare Bears. The new episodes air, weirdly enough, in the middle of the afternoon, but they seem to air again around 6 or 6:30, paired with older episodes. New episodes are scheduled to air every weekday for a couple of weeks or so, which is, well, that's how they've been airing them for the past few years now, so it must be working for them. Enjoy! With that, I'm going to wrap this up for the moment. Hopefully I can get a little further on some of these storylines for next time, especially in my classic collection. It feels like forever since I pulled in one of those discs for cataloging. I want to thank you all for checking in on my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes of this podcast at Apple Podcasts and iTunes at VideoFuzzy.libsyn.com. Feedback is always appreciated, and you can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJ VideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.